Hey everybody, hopefully everybody had a nice Christmas this year. I got this car in here. Wasn't sure if I'd do a video on it or not, but it's here, and I think if you see what happened, you'll make sure you will never make this mistake. So this car was brought to me from another shop because the customer just wanted a second opinion on it. It's a really nice 280 SL over there, European car, manual shift. So it's got the M110 engine in it, and it was brought over because spark plugs were changed. Won't say who did the plugs, but spark plugs were changed, and immediately after restarting the engine, the engine started hammering. So they shut it off. Smart enough to shut it off. They didn't drive or anything. And then the shop assessed that it needed an engine. Couldn't really say why. They found oil in number 5 cylinder. Just determined that it would need an engine. So brought out, towed out, and I'll show you here. My theory was that the engine, when the plugs were changed, if you look at this, if you know this engine has the spark plug holes run down through the top. So if anything gets in there other than water, it does have drain holes for water. But if anything else gets in there, it won't have a way to get out of there until you remove it. So if you go to put plugs in this engine and you don't, do something to eliminate any debris that's in those holes, in those cavities, if you pull a plug out, and stuff's going to fall in there. And that's apparently what had happened. We kind of theorized maybe it was a stone or a rock or anything, some piece of debris that got in there when the plugs were changed. But once it was taken out, it was determined that it was I've got it right here. It was a bolt. So I could see that there was some engine work done on this prior to the ownership of the owner that has it now. And I suspect that when that work was done, there was just a bolt that was dropped down there and not found and not missed. And as soon as somebody pulled the spark plug out, it fell down in the cylinder, and immediately upon starting it, it just proceeded to do damage. So this is what we got. We got a piston beat up like that cylinder head. Now, when I'm looking at this, it's definitely scored the cylinder. When I first got in the car, I looked down in through the cylinder, through the spark plug hole with an endoscope, and I could see the damage, and I could see scoring on the cylinder. But if you've ever used one of these endoscopes or any kind of scope, it's just not a great image. It gives you an indication that something's wrong, but you can't really tell. Now, if I dig around in here, honestly, it's just not that bad. This engine was not run much after it happened. So I'm going to give him a couple options. One is it was kind of the worst case scenario that we knew going into it, and then he was kind of willing to deal with whatever happened because he likes his car and he wants to get it fixed. And that was a complete tear down, rebuild, maybe doing some different pistons because he's kind of a performance guy. But we were really just wanting to get it kind of fixed and cleaned up while we're here, not skip any steps and get good bearings in it and send the block out. We were willing to look at getting it sleeved if that's what it needed, or going ahead and boring all the cylinders and putting a repair size, oversized piston in there and all new bearings and just redoing the engine. This head, in my opinion, it's just done. So it needs to be, I don't know if it's really worth having somebody weld all that up and then recontour it and going through the head and rebuilding it. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Well, I'm going to meet with this guy here within the next couple of days. We'll talk about it. But if it was my engine, okay, and this is the option I'll give him, this is barely, you can barely feel this. It's just, I mean, it's there. There's no mistaking it's there, that score. But I think considering the expense, I think I would personally, I'd pull that piston out. I'd rehone that cylinder, and I get a new set of rings and just a replacement piston. Now this is a Euro engine, so it's got kind of a domed piston on it. So we're kind of limited in that regard. Most of the engines here, the M110 engines in the States, just don't have that. So I did find some used ones on eBay out of Germany. So maybe that's an option. But I would personally get a used pistons. I'd run probably just a ball hone a little bit down in there, isolate the cylinder from the rest of the engine, pop the piston out, and do a quick hone with some oil, clean it, really clean it, and then put in a new piston with rings and maybe new rod bearings on that particular cylinder, and then I put the rest of it together because everything looks really clean. It looks really nice. So it's I think it's about a $5,000 difference. You know, if I have to get pistons and send the block out and get it machined and cleaned and then reassembled and seals, gaskets, everything, which we need most of that already. But kind of curious, anybody's opinion. That's what I would do to fix this engine. This head, it needs a head. So, you know, none of these parts were really a weak point on this engine. So all the used stuff that's available out there, it's probably pretty usable. So, you know, this is already costing a lot of money in regard to, you know, what the car is worth. The car is worth a bit because it's a nice car. But at the same time, you start putting $10,000 into an engine because of a mistake. You know, it starts to mean something. So that is my advice throughout this video. Is, man, if you're gonna pull plugs out, any kind of engine, if that plug is angled down in any regard, which they all are, if there's any stones, any debris in there, clean it out. A vacuum is kind of a half-assed way to do it. I would say use compressed air. You know, get compressed air in there and just blow out with a nozzle. Blow that out. That way, when you pull that plug out, and this goes for any engine. So pull that plug out, make sure it's clean. Nothing's going to fall in there until you put the new plug in and seal it back up. So lessons learned on this one. I guarantee it. So have a great new year. We'll see you soon. Thanks.